Hello again, and welcome to the last roundtable of the Galicia Innovation Days, which will be dedicated to talk about land, oceans, and water for climate action. Identifying mitigation options and adaptation pathways requires research and investments across a broad range of activities. Research is needed to better understand who or what is exposed and sensitive to these changes, or to understand the impacts of climate change, reduce greenhouse emissions of agricultural practices, and to provide mitigation options that reduce the risk of long-term climate change. I would like to remind you that if you want to listen to the interventions in Spanish or in English, if the speaker is talking in Spanish, you have available our translation of our interpreters. You have to just click in translation and you will have the language you want. So in this roundtable, we have three speakers: Sebastián Virasanta from University of Santiago de Compostela, Aris Karagiorgis, Director of the Oceanography Hellenic Center for Marine Research, and Frank Kane from the Marine Institute in Ireland. So in first place, Aris Karagiorgis, Director of the Oceanography Hellenic Center for Marine Research. It's your turn. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aida. Thank you for the invitation. I have followed in the last couple of days the talks at Galicia Innovation Days, and I really understand and admire your initiative. It has been a very nice and busy week, and I hope from our side we will be able to contribute to the better understanding of the problems and the future of the marine environment. So I'm going to talk to you today about the new mission of the European Union under the name Starfish 2030, which deals with the marine environment. Maybe you should turn the slides from your side because it appears it's going to be easier. Thank you. So some words about the missions. The European Union has introduced this year, in September actually, this year, 5 new missions that are instruments to address major societal challenges. In fact, the missions are a design that is following the American initiative of the 60s, with the mission at that time go to the moon, put a man on the moon. The achievement of that mission of the 60s was that it brought together the American people all together, who were very happy and very proud of the achievement of their nation. And I think that this is the major, let's say, motivation of the European Union to introduce some large-scale tasks that will embrace and will be accepted by the European citizens as a whole. So a few weeks ago, the Commission launched the 5 missions. The first one from the left side is adaptation to climate change. The second one has to do with facing cancer. Then we have climate neutral and smart cities. And another mission for the soil deal in Europe, and the one that we are going to talk a little bit further today, to restore our ocean and the waters. The next slide, please. So more or less everybody knows that we are living in the blue planet, and the reason that we name it blue is that from space you can see the ocean and you can see the blue color that is unique in our environment. And the oceans cover 71% of the surface of the planet. Roughly they host something like 50 to 80% of life on Earth. They produce the oxygen that we breathe and the food that we consume. And more or less 3 billion people are directly dependent on marine and coastal diversity for their livelihood. The next, please. We have to understand here that the ocean is not the only water body that we need to take care of. Of course, it's unique because it is composed of salty water. But what we can see here in the picture, which is the so-called water cycle, it has the general meaning that all forms of water, either if it is in the form of fresh water in rivers and lakes or the groundwaters, or if it is in the clouds in the form of vapor, or if it is stored more permanently in the glaciers Altogether, it is the same chemical substance that transforms from one form to the other. And so if we want to protect the ocean, in fact, we have to protect all water on the planet. So the entire water cycle is within the framework of the mission Starfish that we want to implement. The next, please. It has been understood and analyzed fairly recently that the ocean passes the time of the great acceleration. Many things are happening, good and bad things at the same time, but they are happening at a very accelerated pace. All the graphs that you see here have a time frame from the 1970s until the present day, and they also increasing dramatically, sometimes increasing trends. What we want to show here is that things that are positive, let's say, for example, marine aquaculture, it's good to have more aquaculture because we can feed. But at the same time, we are exhausting some resources like the deep hydrocarbons or the deep sea minerals. Or we are using seawater to produce drinkable water, which is good again. Or it's also very good to have a great length of submarine cables, which are transferring all the information that we want over the internet and through the major oceans. But at the same time, we have to understand that the general perspective is that the ocean is an engine that endlessly can produce for the present and the future material for the human needs, for food, for material and space. And we have to make the big question, is that sustainable? Can we continue that kind of growth forever without taking care of the environment and the ocean per se? What we have seen is that there is degradation of the ocean and freshwater ecosystems because of all those human activities that take place, both on sea and on land. And they have a number of direct and indirect impacts that make things a little bit disturbing, and we have to take care of them. Next, please. So the European Commission set a team to study the oceans and let's say highlight what is the current status. And the committee has identified something that more or less we all know, that the ocean and waters are under threat, under severe threat. It appears that our society's relationship to the ocean and the water is inherently unsustainable. There are several challenges that are affecting the health of our ocean, the seas, the coastal and the inland waters. And on top of that, we have to deal with an overarching issue, which is the climate change. And for example, ocean acidification is adding more pressure to the environment. What's the result of all this? Some big, let's say, figures to understand where we're standing. 85% of the wetland areas have been lost. 66% of the ocean area is experiencing cumulative impacts due to human activities. 1 million species are about to extinct. And at the same time, it looks like that we don't have, let's say, the proper tools to restore and manage the aquatic systems. So the mission Starfish is proposing a systemic vision or a holistic vision, if you wish, to take care of all these challenges and find the proper way to address them. The next, please. We have to say a few words about climate change. Climate change, as we have seen, is not the primary goal of this mission. There is a separate one dedicated to climate change, but we cannot forget that whatever happens with the climate affects directly the ocean. And we have seen that already by, for example, the sea level rise. We have all heard about that. We have heard and seen in the news the accelerated glacial melting in the Antarctica, for example. But what we see more and more often nowadays is the extreme weather events. This is a peculiar situation that we are facing, especially the countries around the Mediterranean. During the summertime, they suffer from wildfires. And then in the springtime or the autumn time, we have extremely heavy flash floods that we see all over the news. And the alarming problem is that it happens more and more often. And all that, what they do, they create cascading effects on the marine ecosystems. We have been able to trace changes in biology and chemistry, both in the marine ecosystem and the freshwater ecosystems. And overall, we see that there are severe challenges to freshwater management and supply to be tackled. Next, please. So let's have a look at the findings of the committee that studied the healthy oceans. One of the major problems that we identified was the lack of understanding and connection and inadequate governance. It appears that the European citizens know very well the sea water as far as it concerns the surface, or where we can have, let's say, recreational activities and a little bit of fishing. But what lies below, just to give you a number, below 200 meters, there's no light in the entire ocean. So what is out of sight, it appears at the same time is out of mind and taken for granted. Nobody cares about what is happening below the sea level where we're having our swim or fishing. And this is a very bad, let's say, situation, because most of the sea is unseen from the human eyes. The team has already also identified that we have an underinvestment both in policy and money, and this has to be addressed. But also from the scientific point of view, we have substantial gaps in measurements in the ocean and the regional seas, and we have poor, let's say, tools for prediction and management. Also, another finding was that there are several instruments and institutions who are dealing with the marine environment and the water as a whole, but they are fragmented, and this creates problems in the management of any kind of problem we want to address. The next, please. So here we come with the mission Starfish 2030 with the ambitious title, Restore Our Ocean and Waters. It's a holistic vision targeted for 2030 to address the cumulative threats to our ocean and waters. The Starfish has 5 arms, and so we gave the mission the name of the Starfish to address and describe the 5 pillars, the 5 major objectives of the mission that I'm going to show you in more detail in the next slides. The next, please. So the first pillar, we have to fill the knowledge and the emotional gap. The target of the mission is to make every European a citizen of the ocean and waters. There are several bullets that you can see on the right-hand side that describe potential actions to be taken. But what we want to make out of this mission is to convince every European, either if he's living by the seaside or not, that if you are a European citizen, you have a direct connection to the ocean and the waters. On the other side, we want to enhance the marine and freshwater observations and make them streamlined and accessible to all people. Now, it's relatively easy through computer science and the enhanced networks to have a digital twin of the ocean and all the waters, which means that you can have simulations of water bodies over the internet, and everybody, as a citizen, can have a look of the processes and the measurements that are going on over there. The next, please. The second and probably very ambitious pillar has to do with the regeneration of marine and coastal and water ecosystems. Here we have put some quantitative figures to give the mission a more robust character. So we want to make a reality that until 2030, 30% of the European waters will be highly to fully protected. And this, for example, can be done if we expand the marine protected areas and other networks. This is an example of the bullets on the right side. If we have identified a number of degraded habitats, and unfortunately we have done so, we can actively regenerate 20% of them by 2030. And as far as it concerns the rivers and the fresh waters, we want them to become in natural conditions as far as it is possible by, for example, removing dams or removing obstacles from sediment flows and things like that. Or with respect to fish, we can end overfishing. This is a target for 2030 by, for example, reducing incidental catches or ban completely destructive fishing practices that are still operational. The next. Another ambitious target, we can minimize or even make pollution zero. Okay, when we say zero pollution, we mean that the next generation will experience the seas where nothing in terms of pollutants is entering the environment, the marine environment. That is to say, you can block all kinds of pollution from the source, from the rivers, for example, by banning all kinds of inorganic or organic pollutants and plastic that enters the sea, and then we can have serious operations to depollute areas that have been identified as heavily polluted. Likewise, we can halt and stop completely the eutrophication of the European seas, that is to say, the nitrogen and phosphorus in excess which are coming from fertilizers can be zeroed, and the seas will not be eutrophic anymore. With concern to the zero spill, we can introduce in the European Union green shipping labels and so forth. Another interesting topic is the regulation and reduction of underwater noise, which is considered now as a pollutant, and it has been taken seriously in the last couple of years, but now we are taking real actions for the regulation of noise. The next. With respect to the climate change, as I mentioned earlier, we have to make a connection. So we have decarbonization actions for the ocean and the seas. We seek for climate neutral transport. We seek for energy transition through renewable, low impact ocean energy. We can make aquaculture with zero carbon emissions, and also improve biotech technologies, and claim for a climate neutral blue tourism. The next. And to do all that, we need governance. We need to revamp governance. We need to change governance, make it more holistic, more, let's say, suitable for the problem to tackle and bring people together. So we can say that we have to design an integrated and participatory European Union system of ocean and water governance, for example, by creating a new agency concentrating all actions related to European ocean and water activities. We understand that the European Union is leader on that kind of actions, and we have to pass the leadership to the EU for effective global ocean governance. The next. This is a slide more or less putting the figures that we have announced altogether, the 30%, let's say, protected areas, or 25,000 kilometers of free-flowing rivers and restored rivers, and so forth. We have put certain figures in some of the actions in order to make it more real, more realistic, and more understandable to people, and also to put an implementation plan that will have quantitative meaning. The next. This is the implementation phase. Now we are in the first phase, which is the development and piloting phase, lasting for 3 years. Then in 2023, we plan to have a midterm review, and most of the work to be done will be the deployment and upscaling phase, which is the last 5 years until 2030, where we're going to make up all the scale-up projects, and all the tools that will be developed in the previous years will be enhanced and put in action. The next. One of the tools that we have designed is the mission lighthouses. That is to say, we take big areas like the Danube River Basin, for example, or the marine basins like the Mediterranean, the Antarctic, and the Atlantic and Arctic, the North and the Baltic Sea, where we want to see the member states and regions putting together the regional smart specialization strategies and plans, and then combining with the EU and the regional programs to implement the lighthouses and make these big regions, let's say, lighthouse for a significant event, a significant target that will be put. And of course, all that need the support of stakeholders and the citizens. The next. We have together for the implementation of the access 2 very big and important cross-cutting enablers for the mission. The one is the digital ocean, which puts together data sources like IMODNET, for example, or services like Copernicus to support the whole operation. And on the other hand, we want the public mobilization and engagement of all the other participatory, volunteer, and science literacy bodies. The next, please. And this is coming to the end of my presentation. Here we are with Mission Starfish 2030. let's restore our ocean and the waters. It is a great challenge, but we are optimistic. It's just about a month that this activity was launched officially in Brussels. The initial budget is more than 100 million euros, but we expect that the business for the industry and the companies which will take place in the whole mission will, let's say, use a figure more than 500 million euros to implement the mission, which means a lot of money will be put in the market. And we hope that every European citizen will embrace the mission Starfish, and every European citizen will be part of it if we want to have a better, let's say, future for us and our children. That will be all from my side. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karageorgis. In second place, Sebastián Villasanta from the Department of Applied Economics at the University of Santiago de Compostela. Please, all yours. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks a lot for the kind invitation from FEUGA. It's my pleasure to participate from the University of Santiago de Compostela and also the Cretus Institute. My talk will be more focused on the role of the ocean for human well-being. I will try to share some challenge that I think that we are facing currently right now. Some of them has been already shared by Iris previously, but I will try to concentrate on the opportunities, on how we can find some windows of opportunities to generate transformative change toward sustainable and equity oceans. The first of the thing is that the oceans provide a lot of life and well-being for the humans, right? It supports 50% of primary production on Earth. It's also support or supply around 20% of average intake animal protein for almost 3 billion people in the planet. And also one important thing is that it supports the greatest biodiversity on the planet, providing a wide range of different ecosystem services, provision and regulation, supporting, and also cultural ecosystem services. In 2015, the United Nations adopted for the first time an ambitious socioeconomic objective based on equality and universal for all citizens of the world, which is really extraordinary. However, it is not really possible to simultaneously achieve all of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals without having some trade-off between them. And to solve this, we need to have an integrated framework for which we consider in the scientific community that there are 4 key Sustainable Development Goals deeply connected, such as the Sustainable Development Goal 14, life below water, 13, climate change, 8 and 15, clean water and biodiversity, respectively, because the only way to achieve a just and equitable socioeconomic development is having healthy oceans by also reducing climate change impact at the same time. The contribution of fisheries and aquaculture also are very important for livelihoods and for our well-being. Just give you a couple of minor points. The first one is that the global fish supply has increased at an annual rate of around 3.1 since the 60s of the last century, while the world population has increased only by 1.7 per year for the same period. And also almost 4 billion people in the planet depend directly or indirectly from fish to provide animal protein for their daily diets. And also the seafood products are also prominent as an international trade animal seafood. But right now we are also doing some or facing some critical societal challenge. Let me share with you a couple of them. But this is not an exhaustive list, just sharing some of them to start the dialogue and the discussion. One of them is that we need to feed an increasing population in the planet, and almost 9 billion people in the next couple of years. So there is an increasing seafood demand in the first in this century. As we can see here in this paper, we show some years ago that when people increase the constant GDP per capita, usually we also increase our fish protein per capita as well, like, for example, in developed countries or regions like North America or Europe, for example. But at the same time, like China, for example, given that the enormous change and higher educational system of citizens in China is already increasing the seafood consumption and also the GDP per capita as well. So we need to try to tackle this challenge jointly in the way that we can increase our human well-being in terms of GDP per capita, but at the same time we need to be careful and try to keep a balance between GDP per capita and also the fish consumption per day, because we can compromise the capacity of the ecosystem globally to support these global fisheries and aquaculture. There are also other type of challenges like plastic pollutions, right? Around more than 150 million tons of plastics has been accumulated in the ocean right now. And Europe is the second largest plastic producer globally, only after China. So this is something we really need to care about and think carefully. There are other type of events. The previous speaker also talked about climate change, and yeah, that is correct, because extreme events and economic losses are increasing around coastal, around the coast of Europe. Just to give you an example, a paper published in Nature last year showed that it seems that for the next 100 years, it seems that the sea level rise is projected to be likely increase of around 34 to 76 centimeters under the moderate mitigation policy scenario, which this means at least, and being conservative, around 210 billion euros per year in order to try to mitigate those economic impact. And also fishing is also preventing blue carbon sequestration, right? Because one of the most important challenges to achieve sustainable development goal is to deal with climate change impact. However, this paper published in Science has been recently demonstrated that fishing activities, in particular those large fishing vessels, has been removing important amount of carbon from the ocean since the 50s, and also emitting CO2 emissions to the atmosphere. There is another point that I would like to, or challenge that we are right to share with you, which is the unequal distribution of fisheries subsidies, the payment of the governments by using public money to support the fishery sector. Right, and here we show by as a collaboration with other scientists around the world and from our lab here at Santiago de Compostela, is that we are showing that there is an unequal distribution of fisheries subsidized globally. Firstly, because as you can see in the left, Asia is providing more than $12 billion to the fishery sector per year, and most of them are allocated to large fishing vessels, and Europe is ranked in the third, and in this case also most of the public money is given to the large fisheries sector. And as you can see in the right, if we take all of the more than 35 billion euros that the global governments are providing to the fishery sector, we can see that only 8% of them is allocated to the small-scale fishery sector. We have just published a paper in Science later tonight, in which we are almost 300 scientists around the world. We are calling to the World Trade Organization to end harmful fisheries. Not all of those fisheries subsidized, only those which incentivize overcapacity and led to potential overfishing. And this is basically for two reasons. The first one is that removing harmful fisheries to the fishery sector is socially desirable. Why? Because that will allow us to recover fish resource biomass. They will also allow us to increase the level of sustainable catch under the maximum sustainable yield, and also will provide the capacity to increase the income and level of well-being of fisheries who are involved in the fishery sector. And the second reason is that maintaining carbon fisheries subsidized is also socially inefficient. Why? Because basically we have been recently shown also that the small-scale fisheries are more productive by using the same capital inputs, labor, capital, and energy compared to the large-scale fishery sector, at least in the case of Europe. And this is because the large fishery sector is using higher fishery quotas and also higher harvest subsidies, which are allocated to large fisheries sector, which in the end is ultimately generating distortion of the efficient allocation of inputs. But we have some reasons, in my view, for optimism for the future. I am really optimistic about the future and based on the scientific evidence we have right now. As I said previously, we have estimated which is the total productivity of the European fishing fleet. And this has been published by the SINTEF report in 2021, in which we show basically that the productivity of small-scale fisheries is higher compared to the large-scale fisheries. Indeed, the efficiency and the productivity is almost twofold in the case of the North Atlantic and higher in 16% in the Mediterranean. And this is demonstrating that indeed size of the vessels and productivity of the vessels are not really correlated. The other thing that the Starfish mission is also addressing is related to the carbon footprints of the maritime sectors, right? And here I am showing some interesting results in which we can do a comparative analysis between the sustainability measured as a kilogram of carbon dioxide equivalent emitted by the different food products. And we can see two types of large groups. The first one is one of the groups which are belonging to the fruits and vegetables, the protein coming from non-animals proteins, and in which we can see at the top and on the left of the figure, and in which they provide low nutritional support in terms of proteins, but at the same time they are contributing to the lowest values in terms of environmental impact. And at the same time, in the second side, we can see the protein from coming from animals, and from one side we can see the group of meat combining with with crustaceans and also fish, and which are those type of products, food products, who provide the highest contribution in terms of nutrition, right? Protein, but also in terms of the CO2 emissions emitted to the atmosphere. However, we can see that fish as well as crustaceans present a higher range of variation in terms of carbon footprint compared to meat. In these two cases of the seafood products, which are highlighted in the right of the figure in yellow, in blue, we can see that we selected two case studies. One of them from the two of them from marine protected areas in Spain, and both of them are cephalopods, right? One of them is sepia, and the other one is Octopus vulgaris. Both of them coming from the autonomous Galician regions, and we can see that both of them, these two type of species, are providing an important nutritional support in terms of animal protein, but also relatively low impact in terms to the environment if we compared to other food alternatives which are available in the markets. In this sense, we are here showing empirical evidence that one of the benefits from marine protected areas also provide a higher value in terms of nutritional support, but at the same time lower environmental impact from artisanal fisheries. Let me just share with you a couple of slides in order to share with you some of the reason for optimism. Here in Galicia, probably we are one of the most, if not the most important fishing region in Europe. As you can see, these are some of the key numbers that show the importance of different marine or maritime sectors we have here in Europe, in Galicia, like small-scale fisheries, industrial fisheries, recreational ones, aquaculture, and the cannabis industry. All of them providing a lot of and generating a lot of jobs, incomes, and population and people living in coastal communities, and generating also and maintaining cultural values over generations. And in terms of the COVID impact, we can see that the fishery sector has been impacting negatively. We have seen a landed value reduction of around 14% in terms of landing value and 18% in terms of the volume value. But all of these impacts are not affecting equally the same species, because some of them, like for example, echinoderms or some crustaceans, has been evolving positively over time compared to the previous period in 2015 and 2019 compared to the COVID in 2020. And if we can see the whole supply of seafood in Galicia, including the landing, the fishery sector, the aquaculture, as well as the imports and the export, you can see that in general, except for the canned production, the whole seafood sector has been affected by the COVID, both in value and in volume. However, all of this sector has been successfully passed and dealt with the COVID impact, basically because of proximity to markets, investment in domestic or supply chains, and the development of new technological innovation really helped to avoid food shortage and loss of livelihoods in Galicia, in our regions. In this sense, we are very proud because fishers and fishing enterprise has also acted collectively to reassert their right to provide essential and high quality seafood products to the Galician population, their livelihoods, and even the safe working conditions, and have leveraged relationship and collaboration with our regional government counterparts to continue fishing. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Sebastián Villasante. And finally, we have with us Frank Kane from the Marine Institute in Ireland. Welcome whenever you want. Thank you.
Hi, guys. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak and for organising this event. I'm Frank Kane from the aquaculture section in the Marine Institute in Ireland, where we work on monitoring, regulation and development of aquaculture. Current areas we're working on are IEMTA and what it can offer to the Irish and European aquaculture section. We work on salmon farm monitoring and research, sea lice technologies and productions. I work within the Marine Institute, so to put it in context who we are, the role of the Marine Institute is to provide government, public agencies, and the marine sector the scientific, advisory, and economic development services.
Sorry for the intervention, Mr. Kane. Just a little thing. Could you please move a little bit your camera to see you better, because we have a lot of space. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That would be
Sorry. No
better.
worries at all.
Thank you.
So the Marine Institute, we undertake, coordinate and promote marine research and development, which is essential for the sustainable marine economy. And our overall vision is we see ourselves as global leaders in ocean knowledge, empowering Ireland and its people to safeguard and harness our ocean wealth. And safeguarding and harness our ocean wealth is also sort of a key aim of the Mission Ocean, When we talk about Mission Ocean, we recognize that a healthy blue planet is crucial to our future. It seeks to improve our ocean knowledge, reduce marine pollutions, protect marine biodiversity and ecosystems, and make the blue economy more sustainable and climate friendly, as we've all sort of heard. The objective of the mission is to restore the health of our oceans and waters by 2030, and the European Union can only fulfill its Green Deal objectives by restoring the good health of the hydrosphere. The mission should raise both the ambition and the scale of investment needed to tackle the global scale challenge, to restore ocean health and to protect marine ecosystem goods and services. And a key feature of Mission Ocean is that it broadens the research, development and innovation activity and provides opportunities to develop seamless synergies between Horizon Europe and other funding mechanisms such as the Structural Fund, the European Investment Bank, and enabling the mission to deliver on the breadth and scope of its objectives. This is essential to ensure that the actions arise from the mission involve a broad constituency of stakeholders and cover the full value chain from our research, development and innovation to policy and practices. The mission Starfish, as we mentioned earlier, also presents the opportunity to truly demonstrate the role and importance of oceans to all our citizens. And the inclusion of citizens in the co-design of research is a vital thing. This is taxpayers' money as such, and we want our citizens to understand the oceans and research. And to fulfill the mission, we need to work with the people to shape the future of our oceans, to ensure a better, bluer future. So before the mission was launched, our previously Marine Institute CEO, but now acting independently as a Marine Oceans board member, ran a pilot citizen survey in Ireland to identify people's understanding and to get people to share their views on current marine issues and priorities for the protection of the marine environment. They carried out an online survey, getting over 1,000 responses within Ireland. And the key findings of this survey were that people do understand that humans are damaging the ocean and that we should be doing more about it, that our health and the health of the oceans are connected, that the oceans can create jobs and economic growth, that marine pollution is a significant concern, and they recognize the needs to regulate plastics. They recognize the importance of understanding the oceans and having good data, as well as good maps and information around the sea and the seabed, and that establishing an European Oceans Agency is a good idea. So that's sort of getting the general people behind the concept. The Commission then have published their implementation plan. As sort of was mentioned, the EU mission Restore Our Oceans and Waters by 2030. And this plan showed the systemic path to the restoration of the health of the oceans. It's done as recommended within the Starfish report that was mentioned, where they talked about the 5 legs, as Iris sort of said, filling the knowledge and the emotional gap, regenerating the marine and freshwater ecosystems, zero pollution, decarbonizing our oceans and waters, and revamping our governance. So the missions outlined objectives and targets in the implementation plan. And it had 3 main intervention areas or pillars. They were sort of talked about. Number 1 was to protect and restore marine and freshwater ecosystems and biodiversity, with targets of protecting at least 30% of sea areas and strictly protecting 10%, to restore our rivers and restore our seabeds and coastal ecosystems. Pillar 2 is to prevent and eliminate pollution in our ocean, seas and waters by reducing plastic by 50%, reducing microplastics, and reducing nutrient loss by 50%. And pillar 3 is to make the blue economy carbon neutral and circular, and in line with carbon change laws. The targets are to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions from maritime activities in the EU, to develop zero carbon and low impact aquaculture, promoting the circular and low carbon multi-use of marine spaces and waters. And this is where the Marine Institute comes in. And this is particularly our area, the aquaculture section, which is an area of focus on. Just currently, the Marine Institute has coordinated the Horizon 2020 Impact Project, which brought together 21 multidisciplinary partners with the objective to develop and demonstrate an intelligent technological platform for the sustainable management of an IMTA farm. The platform is to cover multiple production environments and to validate the concept of integrated multitrophic aquaculture, or IMTA, as a sustainer and circular approach to aquaculture. And this project contributes to restoring the health of the oceans, as well as the digital ocean and knowledge system, improving monitoring systems. Some key findings for the project was the demonstration and validation of the impact technology platform and the IMT and the integrated multitrophic aquaculture setups at 6 pilot sites. We were working with SAMS in the UK, the North Sea Farms offshore site in the Netherlands, Keywater Fisheries freshwater site, recirculating site in Ireland, the Marine Institute's Lehenapool Marine Research Site in Connemara, Ireland, and along with our industrial partners in Chamli in Turkey and the LOC Fisheries Institute in Sangao Bay in China. Just for a bit of context, integrated multitrophic aquaculture is a concept in aquaculture, and it's where species from different levels in the food chain are farmed in the vicinity of each other, so they benefit from the arrangement. So there are fish or fed species which require input to the system for them to grow. These produce waste, which has an impact on the environment. The idea is that this waste nitrogen and nutrient produced by the fish can be utilized by other species to grow. They can be filter feeders or sediment feeders, feeding on the particulate organic matter, or seaweed or plants which are utilizing the dissolved matter in the water. Therefore, the system sort of mimics the natural cycle in the oceans on a local scale, creating this cycle of nutrients and reducing the impact of the fed species. So the project found regarding IMTA that IMTA facilitates better use of production space and infrastructure than single species monoculture fish farm sites. It increases diversity of crops and contributes to the biodiversity and good environmental status of the production environment. It contributes to an increase in the biomass produced and reduces the seasonality of the monoculture aquaculture model. It reduces the risk of eutrophication due to bioremediation of dissolved and particulate organic matter, as well as excess nutrients. Seaweed can act as an important remediator of fish waste in the environment. And IMTA provides value in terms of providing ecosystem services by the system when transferring from a monoculture system to an IMTA system. Estimates of the overall costs and benefits of IMTA to the ecosystem, including the business, the environment, and the species, and the food products have been provided by the project. From the digital ocean point of view, the project developed a monitoring platform supporting an intelligent management system for our IMTA farms, supported by novel sensors, new algorithms, and an IMTA model to better understand how IMTA systems operate. Key outputs from Impact are the Impact Project Handbook and the Impact Online Training Course, which is hosted on the Open University Learn and Create platform. There's links there for those, and you can also access them through the project website, impact.project.eu. So IMTA offers a key tool in the aquaculture sphere to help achieve many of the mission ocean objectives. Aquaculture is an efficient method of supplying high quality protein and omega-3 fats to the population, as well as to contributing to food security and import substitution. But our challenge is to do this as sustainably as possible, utilizing the circular model and minimizing and eliminating impacts. So the IMTA concept can be a key tool in doing this. The MI continue the work of the Impact Project in the current Horizon 2020 Astral project. The aims of Astral include defining, supporting, and promoting this type of sustainable aquaculture production across the Atlantic area. And they are doing this in a number of IMTA labs, as they call them, or integrated multitrophic aquaculture research locations across the Atlantic area, and progressing the techniques, technologies, and understanding of the IMTA system. Going back to the mission, the 3 pillars of the mission are moving towards what we call the mission lighthouses, which were briefly mentioned earlier, the lighthouses are focus areas to light the way for people. In the first development and piloting phase from 2021 to 2025, the mission will roll out lighthouses in major European seas and river basins as the mission sites. These will be developed, rolled out, and scaled up in other areas afterwards. So the Danube focuses on the freshwater element, and the Atlantic and Arctic focuses on Pillar 1. The North Sea and the Baltic focuses on Pillar 3. The lighthouses act as hubs and platforms for the development, demonstration, and deployment of transformational innovations of all forms, technological, social, business, and government, in order to reach the 3 specific mission objectives: integrating existing and new knowledge, co-design and co-implementing with citizens and stakeholders. They will build on the existing governance and financial and research structures. The objective is that within this mission, within this decade, this mission will help the EU to reach its ambitious 2030 targets of restoring the ocean, seas, waters, and lead by example the global effort towards ocean and water sustainability. I think IMTA is one of the key tools for the aquaculture section to help achieve that and get there. This highlights the importance of the oceans as one of Horizon Europe's missions and presents a plan to utilize, protect, and restore them for future generations. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kane. Now I would like to ask you a question. So I will start for Aris Karajorgis because he was the one into the intervention. So what do you think that the European Commission has considered oceans as one of the Horizon Europe missions? Why is it so important for the EC?
It's not only important for the European Commission, it is important for the entire planet. I think that we have all understood in the last couple of years that it's not fictional. We are dealing with big problems with the ocean, and we have to find how to address them and find solutions. I think the Commission just identified what the scientists have been saying for the, let's say for the past few years. And don't forget that in the previous 3 or 4 years, there was a dispute whether there is climate change, whether it affects the ocean or not. So all this now seems to disappear, and we are having a clear vision in front of us. We have a problem and we have to find a solution, and we have both the knowledge and the technology and the willingness to do it. I think it's just, let's say, digesting the problem and figuring out what to do to solve it. It became more mature. It's not that we discovered it recently. We just understood that now we have to do something. Now it's more pressing.
Mr. Villasante, you said you were optimistic about the future. I don't know if you agree with Mr. Karagiorgis.
Yes, definitely I agree, because the scientific evidence is quite clear in that sense. There were generating a lot of evidence from the scientific community, but also from international organizations like, for example, the International Panel for Climate Change, but also the International Platform of Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, which has been provided a lot of evidence globally that the oceans in general are being affected by human pressures. So we really know that, and we also acknowledge and that the European Commission is already, moving forward into the developing of new action in order to generate transformative change toward a more resilient, sustainable, and equitably ocean for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Kane, do you think society is aware enough of this we are talking about?
I don't think so, no. I don't think people realize the importance of the oceans to our life in general. They affect everything in our lives. They affect the weather, they affect the air. Healthy, clean oceans are vital for the survival of mankind on the planet as such. I sort of agree that I think the EU chose an ocean mission because they recognize the importance of the oceans from a European point of view. I remember the Marine Institute used to have a saying, or what do you call it, a catchphrase, that 90% of Ireland is underwater, is in our territorial area. When also from a European level, it's probably not 90%, but a significant amount of the territorial area of Europe is actually underwater. And this is vital to be harnessed, to both protect and also harness from an economic point of view, a food point of view, a food security point of view. I think as we go forward and the environmental challenges get greater on a planetary level, I think food security and being able to produce our own food within the European Union will be a key element. And I think aquaculture and producing this in a sustainable, circular way is going to be a really important tool to do that. And I think things like the Ocean Mission, with its really high level and ambitious objectives, are really good signposts to everybody that this is where we want to go, this is what we want to do. And I think being led from the top by European level is a key way to ensure that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kane. So I don't know if the other speakers wants to add something or any comments about what we were saying. Okay, thank you very much. So Frank Kane, Sebastian Villasante, and Aris Karagiorgi, thank you very much, the three of you, for being with us today in this roundtable.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For the opportunity.
Thank you so much.